As many of you may know, that I was born in Haiti to sac passe. Born to loving Haitian parents who often went to church, and many other relatives as well. They went to church. So if the uncle, the aunt, grandma went to church, you were basically expected to go to church. So I really did not have much of a choice but to go to church. So not only go to church, you had to go to school and be respectful to adults. Anyone who's older than you, you were expected to be respectful to them. So as a churchgoer, these phrases were not very uncommon to me. Phrases such as, do not murder, you don't steal, do not lie, don't smoke. Tattoos was not a big thing back then, but I'm sure if the Haitian parent knew of tattoos, they would probably say, do not tattoo yourself. And certainly do not commit adultery. You know, you don't want to be known as the guy who causes somebody else's marriage to fall apart. So these things were etched in my mind at a very young age. So growing up, my thoughts were simply, if I do not do these things, I can keep my hands to myself, then I'm all good with God. And God knows that I'm good with him. He's good with me. So that was in my mind. So I did not know much about the Bible's specific verse in scriptures in Romans 3, verse 10, which says, no one is righteous. There is no one good. Because I was thinking, don't do, keep your hands to yourself, I'm good. But far from the truth. So at the age of 5, my parents migrated to the United States, leaving me and my siblings with our grandparents and other relatives to care for us. So life in the country was pretty good because we did not have much, nor were we expecting a lot. We didn't have no TV, I don't remember having any electricity or anything, but it's not like I was comparing with anything because we didn't have these things, so life was great. Suddenly at the age of 10, my grandma passed away. I remember feeling very sad, very confused. And many times I would cry at night. You know, I would just wake up, just bawling, crying to myself, and just feeling confused, asking God, why did this happen? But I would not share that with anybody, so I just kept it all in. On the inside, I was hurting, right? Just feeling sad. Imagine a 10-year-old just losing his grandparents and really not sharing his emotions with anyone. So back then, it wasn't really a big thing for you to share your emotions with anybody, nor was it expected. And especially for a man or a young boy, it's just not manly enough, so I just kept it all in. Finally, at the age of 13, I moved to the state of Florida to live with my parents. So while living in the state, a lot were different. Imagine, I was exposed to a lot more and not such in a good way. So I started judging others based on the way they look, just if they acted differently than I grew up or looked differently, so I judged them. I lied a lot more. I did anything just to get myself away from getting in trouble with my parents. I remember the first time I was exposed to pornography very vividly. Where I was living, there was a piece of land there, and then I saw the magazine, and then later, some videos that I came across. I remember just feeling just very sad. It's not only is it something that I did in private, secretly, that no one is looking, but at the end, my heart just felt, like pulled, empty. So, but I continue living such a life because part of me wanted to live that way, but my conscience tells me that it's not the right thing to do. So I find myself being trapped, pulling and tugging. I wanted to really call it the invisible strings that the Satan just had. Just keep pulling. You can't really see it, but he's just pulling you away from different things, and that was pornography. But then again, I was helpless. I could not, part of me wanted to go back into it, and then my conscience tells me it's not the right thing to do. I also thought that as long as I'm not doing these things physically, then it's not as bad. So I was under the illusion that physically you had to be doing these things. So I was trapped in my own mind. Satan had me trapped. Later, I remember reading a scripture in Matthew 5, verse 27, that says, "You have heard that it was said, you should not commit adultery. However, I never remember about verse 28 that says, if you looked at a woman lustfully, you've already committed adultery in your heart." So I was living this life, and I felt comfortable about it. One Friday evening, a friend of mine in high school, Rodney Robillard, invited me to a picnic service they were having. I went, we played basketball, and then they had a Bible discussion toward the end. Right after the picnic, he invited me to attend church, so I also went to church. I went to church because, I remember Rodney before had long hair with dread, and I was thinking to myself, all right, if Rodney's now going to church, then I pretty much growing up going to church, so I'll go ahead and go. So it's not a big deal. So I went to church, and there I saw many people in the church just singing and clapping, fellowshipping, taking notes afterward. And that felt very right to me, because I was living this life knowing somewhat of the good, but really not living the good. So he asked me later if I wanted to study the Bible. So I said yes. While studying the Bible for the next couple weeks, they shared their conversion stories with me, and I saw them living the word out, which I've never seen before. And I was challenged to, based on the scriptures, to not live a lie, you know. Often I would tell people to don't do these things. Hey, you can't do that. You can't look at a woman, you know, if you commit adultery, that's not good. So I would say these things because I know they were the right things to say, but then again, in my own heart, I was actually living these things. And the Bible clearly describes that as hypocrisy. I was being a hypocrite. So I needed to confess my sin and ask others to hold me accountable. And not only ask them to accountable, I needed the Lord to rescue me from Satan's trap, because he trapped me and I felt comfortable in the trap, but it was not the right place to be. So I'm just going to share one scripture with you guys. On Romans 12, verse 2, it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." So I needed to be untrapped, because Satan had me in a place of comfortability, saying, okay, well, you're okay. You're not doing these things, so you're not that bad. So that's a trap from sin that I needed to be freed of. And thank God the brothers studied the Bible with me and shared the truth. And by the grace of God, I made the decision to be baptized and made Jesus Lord of my life for the forgiveness of my sins, and be added to God's church on August 21st, 1994. To God be the glory.